during the holidays, Daniel asked the family a question after dinner one evening, and he asked the question, what's your favourite story in the Bible? We were thankfully allowed more than one. And my story was that in the Old Testament, my favourite is the story of Ruth. But when it came to the New Testament, without really knowing why, I came out with the story of the widow of Nain. And as I mentioned this, I was suddenly very moved, and after dinner I came outside and I processed with God what it was about this story that had so moved me, this idea that this was a favourite story. What was it about it that was speaking to my heart? And in this story, which is told in the Gospel of Luke, we read that Jesus and his disciples were approaching a town called Nain. And as they were approaching, they saw a funeral procession coming. And it was a widow, and the dead person was her only son. And it tells us that Jesus is moved with compassion, and he goes up to the bier where the young man is laid, and he speaks to the dead body, and he raises this young man back to life, and he restores him to his mother. And the thing about the story that so moved me was that this is a situation that is hopeless. The young man, we know nothing more than that, but we assume that there was a period of illness during which he got worse and worse, and eventually to the point where the mother had given up hope because he was no longer getting better. And we've now got that she is burying her only son. We've gone past hoping, daring to hope, hopeless, and then no hope. And I love that that is exactly where Jesus meets her. In the Gospel of John, it tells us that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. And it carries on to explain that the Word of God is Jesus. It tells us in Hebrews that the Son is the radiance of God's glory, the exact representation of his being. Or in another version, he expresses the very character of God. So if I want to know what God is like, I need to look at Jesus. If I want to know the character of God, I look at Jesus. In the story of Abraham, we have Hagar being sent into the desert and being met by God. And when she speaks of this experience, she says that she has been met by the one who sees. We know that we have a God who sees. The Old Testament shows us in different ways that God also cares, that he protects. But Jesus is the very embodiment of those characteristics. And here in this story of this widow about to bury her son, we see that God in Jesus not only sees, not only cares, but he is there and restoring the situation. There's a beautiful touch at the end of this story where it tells us that Jesus brings this young man back to his mother. He restores this family. This is the kind of God that we know and love. A God who sees, a God who cares, a God who restores. I think what I found so moving about this story is that this really is when all hope has gone, when there's nothing left, and yet that is exactly where this woman meets Jesus, when all hope has gone, when there is nothing left. And it raised the question for me, what is there in my life that I've buried, that I gave up on long ago, that are buried dreams, buried hopes, things just forgotten about because they're so long gone? And is Jesus saying, are you sure? Are you sure there's no hope? Because in places where you think all hope has gone, that is where I am.